Okay, this is going to be a long one, so strap yourselves in. I've tried to keep all the other videos quite short, but this one is going to go the distance. It's quite complex what we're about to do. So the first thing we need to do is to plan, and we need to make sure we know what we're actually doing for this assessment. So let's start at the beginning and make sure we understand what evaluate means. It means to make judgments. So essentially, bottom line, what you're doing is you're making judgments about the research processes that you used in your research project and a few other things as well that are around here in red. Don't worry, I'm going to go through each one of them on their own. Now, throughout the whole of your writing, you've just got to remember what evaluate means. It's so easy to turn it into a description, and you won't get any marks for that, really. And so just remember, you've got to highlight both the strengths and the weaknesses as well. Not for everything. I'll show you how. And on top of all of that, you've also, at various stages, got to talk about any decision making you did. Decisions in relation to some of the challenges that you faced, or decision making to kind of create opportunities for yourself. Now remember this picture, we're dealing with the bit in red at the moment. You've done your summary, fantastic. We're dealing with the bit in red at the moment. Just remind yourself what research processes actually are. Sometimes people get mixed up. Research processes are the different types of ways that you use to find out. So they are things like interviews or academic reports or scientific experiments or blogs or YouTube clips, all of that stuff. Sources are sources of information that come under all of those headings. So there's a person who could be a source of information who was an interview. There's a source of information about something that comes from a blog, for example. You're talking about research processes, and these are the things that are going to guide your paragraphs. Each paragraph will tend to be about a particular research process. Now, here's the stage where you stop and you start your own planning, which will kind of be ongoing as we go through. And what you need to do, you need to open up the evaluation planning worksheet that's hopefully underneath this video here. And another thing you could open up if you wanted to is the example I've given you of how to fill it out, basically. So what you're doing in this, you are very simply writing down your research processes. Everybody will be different, and try and write them down in order of importance possibly for you. And so, most of you will have 4, 5, possibly 6. You could have more than that. Some people could have even more, but generally people have about 4 or 5, And for some of you, interviews might be at the top. For some of you, organizational websites might be at the top. Or for some people, like surveys could even be at the top there. Okay, so once you've done that, once you've opened up the evaluation planning worksheet, and once you've actually written out in order of importance all the research processes you've used, once you've done that, you keep going. But you can stop me now and just write things out, okay? All right, now hopefully you've written out your little list. Now these are the things that you're going to evaluate. And it might be a little bit daunting because you might go, what does that mean? I don't know. Don't worry, I'll go through it. And the most important thing to remember is that you don't need to mention all of these for every research process. It's not like a ticker box whereby you go, all right, for this particular research process, I'm going to look at validity, then I'm going to look at reliability, then I'm going to look at relevance. It's not actually like that. So just remember that one. Now here's an overall example of something, just to give you an idea about the style of writing, and I'm going to read it out to you. Personal communication with experts has been fundamental to the success of my research. Now spot the evaluation there. Personal communication, which is interviews on the whole, talking to people, has been fundamental, incredibly important to the success of this person's research. In the early stages, I took the opportunity to get in touch with Lydia Hamber, a past student at school, who studied a Bachelor of Technology Air Transportation Management at Swinburne University in Melbourne from 2003 to 2007, and was the Senior Manager of Fatigue and Risk Management at American Airlines from 2011 to 2014. Notice how the qualifications of this person, and therefore the credibility of them, is established here. It was challenging, there's a challenge, to organise a contact method with the obvious time and location difference, but I used the free overseas call feature from WhatsApp. Notice that this is decision making in regard to a challenge there. I was able to gain a rough but reliable idea as to some advancements that could be researched. Okay, he's told us what he got out of it. This process was invaluable as a guide for my future research and informed me about significant advancements including the jet engine, glass cockpit, fly-by-wire and fire safety tech. So we've been told it was invaluable, and we've been told what it was invaluable for. Lydia works in a specific sector of aeroplane technology as manager of the risk management sector at JetBlue Airways, and this may have produced some bias. Aha, so he's recognising some limitations. However, by conducting the call alongside Eel Breiter, the JetBlue manager of the safety management sector, the chance of bias was diminished as they agreed on the answers given. So in other words, he's talking about the power of cross-referencing. All right, hopefully that gave you a bit of an idea about the type of writing that you need to do. I'm going to go through one by one the things that you need to consider. And what you've got to do for each one of them is say to yourself, okay, I'm not going to mention all of these all of the time for every research process, but where can I use this? Where is it probably best to use this particular aspect of the research process? So one of the first ones that you will every now and then be mentioning, you'll be talking about validity. And validity basically means that word in bold, that appropriate. How appropriate was the research process? Now, hopefully you all chose appropriate research processes, but sometimes people don't, or sometimes people actually change. And so therefore, look at the example. Government fact sheets written specifically for organisational websites such as the Department of Health were highly valid for the purpose of. So in other words, the government fact sheets were one of the most obvious and appropriate places for this person to go. Likewise, if you're researching Henry VIII, for example, a fairly obvious and very valid place to go would be to a biography written by an accredited historian about Henry VIII. But sometimes students come up to us and they say, well, should we do a survey? And we go, well, is it valid? And they go, oh, well, it could be. And sometimes it is, and sometimes it isn't, especially if people's questions change. So, you can point out the most obvious, the most obviously appropriate, the most obviously valid processes for your particular topic. And if appropriate to your particular research topic, you can say whether something maybe was not as valid as you expected it to be. Now this one here, reliability usefulness, is a real biggie, and it will take you back to the source analysis stuff that you've done and the early stages when you were looking at websites, if you remember. And it's basically saying how accurate and trustworthy is the information that I got from this particular research process. And you've got to explain why in detail. And if you remember, it's all about who's produced it, what qualifications have they got, what right have they got, to sort of be telling us about this, or are they just inventing it and it's coming out of their bottom? And then what's the purpose of producing this information? So here's a simple example here. The second source I analysed, Introduction to Organic Chemistry, proved to be of exceptional reliability. Okay, so that's pretty high. due to the qualifications of the author, Dr. William Brown, a PhD in chemistry, and the list of 16 professors of chemistry who had reviewed the text. Well, that's pretty exceptional reliability, I would say. Here's another example of reliability. And if I were you, I would actually, come back to this and have a really close look at it, because it's very, very good. Because the stuff in green kind of is very much evaluative kind of writing. I'm not going to go through everything with you, but essentially it's established that it's the most valuable research process to begin with, and that they prove to be, like I'm going through the green here, more reliable than any other source. It's talking about currency in that third sentence there. Their currency ranged, yet their findings were totally consistent. So in other words, over all of those years, the findings were consistent, and this obviously adds to their validity and reliability. And then this student goes on, and it's a particularly good technique, this one. It gives an example of a particularly useful source of information within this research process, and they give the authors and they give the title. And in this particular case, this student is focusing in upon the fact that it was a meta-analysis dealing with lots and lots of different studies. And it basically says it was invaluable. This source was invaluable. And it goes through, why they found it invaluable. And notice again, just pointing out the references that are included here. So that's a really good example, a nice model that you could use for yourself if you wanted to. Now, relevancy, importance. Hopefully it's relevant because, it's providing you with information and you wouldn't look at it otherwise. But, some are more relevant than others. So you're answering these questions. What level and depth of information the research process provided on your actual question? So, for some of you might have magazine articles that deal with it in a kind of superficial way, but some of them are more in depth. So you might have had an interview that was good for cross-referencing, but not really good for much else, and that's the second question. Was it fundamental to your research? Was it important for cross-referencing? Typo there. Was it seminal? Again, a typo there. Sorry about that. Seminal meaning very, 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 very important. Or was it just simply something that gave you a direction, sort of something to follow? And sometimes it's useful saying how much it contributed to the research outcome, because sometimes you might have, especially interviews, we find, 2 or 3 interviews, and it's like, man, those are really, really good, and they contributed a lot towards the research outcome. Here's another example of relevance and importance. Notice, again, we've got the student evaluating that this was the most beneficial research process. And this particular student just did loads and loads of interviews. And what they've done in this paragraph, they've kind of summarized some of their interviews and basically done, the strengths and the limitations, if you like, of these interviews. Extremely helpful, detailed, great in-depth knowledge, all of this sort of stuff. But has also sort of said, well, not all of them were that good, and this is possibly a reason why, one of those interviews wasn't that good. And notice, let me just point this out, right? In the last sentence here, the student has not only said that it was a very useful source, but it's said sort of like it's providing significant and invaluable information about, right? So, you're kind of sticking yourself onto a lower grade if you simply say, oh, yes, this was very significant and provided me with a lot of information. Because you're not saying about what. You need to kind of say about what. Okay, here's this word. You've come across it before, I'm sure. It basically refers to how up-to-date something is, how current something is. And for some people, this matters more than others. It purely depends upon your research topic. So for this one, for example, this person doing the organic chemistry, in the green, she's basically saying that the currency of the sources doesn't actually matter because the information has largely remained unchanged for decades. And so the second sentence in green, she says, for this reason, the validity of the text Introduction to Organic Chemistry is not compromised. It's not compromised. It doesn't matter, that it's 19 years old, because basically in her particular field, the information doesn't really change that much. But of course, you might be researching a field whereby it does matter. And, there are some fields that matter massively. I mean, one student did drones and the laws about drones, and they were literally, changing before his very eyes on the screen because that field is moving incredibly quickly. This one, it doesn't relate to every research process at all, but it is something to consider in terms of how representative the information actually is. You might have one research process that has thrown off some things that doesn't really appear anywhere else, and you're going, well, I wonder why that's the case here. It doesn't really cross-reference. Is it an unusual opinion, or, so who's actually produced that information? Where does it come from? How representative are they of the information on this particular topic? So this one is just an example, and again, you can come back to it, and just stop the film and have a little look at it. It's basically about somebody who was surveying people. She surveyed 33 people, and she was really sort of taken aback by the answer because she didn't expect the answer to be what she expected it to be. And she worked out, can you see in green at the bottom, the survey was not representative from a number of different perspectives, from the number of people surveyed to the type of people surveyed. And she also came to the conclusion that the design of her questions in the survey didn't actually allow for people to really state what they really thought, so to speak. So her survey proved not to be particularly representative. And ethical practice, you know about this. These points here are just a bit of a reminder. You have got to demonstrate to the marker that you actually understand ethical practice, that you understand how it applies to your particular research project. So all of you will have the top thing, references and bibliography. All of you will have asked permission if you have interviews, and hopefully you've asked permission to use names and any visuals or any other information that you've provided with. Hopefully you've kept yourself and other people safe, and we're not only just talking physically safe, we're also talking mentally safe, and so therefore you've been sensitive with the asking of your questions, and you've been aware of how you could upset people. For those of you who do something controversial, hopefully you've respected other people's opinions, however much you might disagree with them, and also hopefully you haven't sort of included anything in your research that's not true, that's false, that's just simply made up, or anything like that. And again, you can come back to this slide here. Here are just some examples of how you can include mentions of ethical practice into your paragraphs. It depends where they fit, where you want to put them, basically. And they all deal with what I've just mentioned, essentially. So yeah, it's something worth coming back to, possibly. All right, I'm nearly there, I promise. Decision making. Now, somehow you've got to incorporate this as well. So how do we do this? So you can incorporate it into an existing kind of paragraph about a research process. So, a classic one would be, okay, well, let's look at this first one. This was an academic study, and in the beginning of the paragraph you will have gone through the strengths of it and the limitations of it, and in the limitations you'd probably sort of mention the fact that this proved to be a major challenge, because even though the source was one of the most valid and relevant sources I came across, it was very difficult to understand. Even after trying to look up the vocabulary, I still found it very difficult to interpret. So I contacted Abigail Goff, a lecturer in organic chemistry at Adelaide University, and asked her to talk to her about this research. So they got you showing that, you're making decisions, you're acting upon getting over a challenge. She was able to explain to me in words that I understood, and this significantly helped my understanding regarding carboxylate. I can't say the word, carboxylic acids. Thank you very much. Okay. And then again, you've got a shorter version of this. Contacting someone who could explain the financial side of the business proved challenging. I sent out 14 emails, but I didn't receive any responses. I decided to ask my parents for contacts and managed to get 2 responses to my mother's Facebook. Both of those are things that you could sort of basically incorporate yourself. Here's one that just deals with a challenge on its own, but it deals with other stuff as well. So if you like, they foregrounded challenges because it was one of their major challenges. It was a main thing. But they've also sort of talked about opportunities as well. So you might find that that's the best way to deal with your challenges and opportunities and put it into sort of like a separate paragraph, if you like. Here's something on the opportunities. Again, you can come back, pause the film, look at the examples. I've also got other examples for you in a Word document too. Don't forget the opportunities. Like you face a challenge or you take an opportunity, or you were talking to somebody, you went out the weekend and you suddenly realize that this person might, be able to put you in contact with people. Don't forget the opportunities either. Okay. Now, to help you with this decision making in response to challenges and opportunities, SACE have produced a very, very good worksheet. Now, I've given you the link in one of the Word documents, but if you want it now, all you have to do is tap it into Google, and I've just said to you here, SACE Research Project Understanding E2, which is the performance standards it relates to, and it's basically the first PDF you get. It's really, really good, and I would totally and absolutely recommend it. Okay, sorry that was so long. Hopefully it's understandable. Hopefully you can go back on it. Sorry about some of the typos. I was a bit rushed towards the end. Now you need to actually start writing. You've got your planning. I would seriously suggest that you do notes like I've given you an example of, just so that you get your head around stuff. And then you can start writing. And once you start writing, I've got a Word document for you here that will take over from this PowerPoint, that will take you through, if you like. It repeats some of the information, it repeats some of the exemplars, but I think between this document here and the PowerPoint that you've just done here, you've got enough to really do a good evaluation. So heads down, get to it, you can do it, and we're looking forward to seeing what you come up with.